Okay. Good. Let's, I think as in the past, our meetings can be done in an hour. And I think this meeting can be done also. There are a number of things, but I think they can go fairly quickly. Some may have to be postponed. The first thing is, I didn't realize, Pat, you emailed me about the minutes. I don't think, I emailed you that they were sent out on the 7th. You didn't get it, did you?
No.
I just realized I looked at my email. He didn't send it out to everybody. I think he expected me to send it out, which I did not.
Okay.
So, if you don't mind, we can just postpone. We have somebody's coming. Oh, this is, we have a guest. Nancy,
Nan's iPad.
Nancy, are you there? Nancy is from the Garden Club. She wanted to, Nancy Sarno, and she wanted to be part of the present, which is fine. But going back to the minutes, it was my mistake. I didn't realize that Josh should not send them out to everybody. I'll try to be careful of that in the future. So,
But Ray, they're generally posted on the town website, but I haven't been able to find them lately.
oh,
There's a new format and everything is a little trickier now.
well, don't feel bad. That is, when I try to find things like that, I give up easy now. I just say I can't find it. I don't, I don't know, Pat. I don't know what to tell you. Okay. So, we'll have to postpone the approval of the minutes of the June meeting until the August meeting. And by the way, the one thing I found a mistake was the next meeting, according to the minutes, says it's in May. It's actually in August, but that's a minor thing. Okay. So that aside, is there any public comment? None. Okay. Old business. And this is the recommended tree list that Pat and James have put together. This has been an ongoing thing that we're trying to do, and I think it's coming together. I will say, Pat, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, anyway, I did send this out to my nephew who is a forestry expert, and he said no comment. He said it's a good list. So anyway, do you want to say something about it, Pat? That's what you recommend.
Well, that's good news about your nephew. Did you distribute these lists, Ray, so that the other members have viewed them?
I thought I did. Did you get it, Shirley?
I think I
Nicole, you
did.
Okay, yeah, I thought I did. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I wanted to explain just a little bit, as I have already explained to you, Ray, the background on the preparation of the list.
Right.
And James and I began with our existing subdivision tree list, along with the Framingham list that Shane had proposed. And we developed the new list based upon native and keystone species. The keystone plants have been listed as natives, essential to our ecosystems because they support 90% of the caterpillar species that enable our terrestrial birds and native bees to reproduce. This is the latest thinking necessary to save our environment.
Excuse me, Pat, could you define keystone? What are you referring to when you said keystone?
That's what I just explained. Keystone plants are native, essential to our ecosystems because they support 90%
Right.
of the caterpillar species.
What is, I'm sorry about my ignorance. What does keystone mean though? I mean, is it simply a generic term or is it a?
It's the name that Doug Tallamy came up with when he was doing his research. He's a professor of entomology and all of these types.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
But he's the one that named them.
Right.
And so now we're all calling them keystone.
Okay.
But The other piece of information is that we compared resources from National Wildlife Federation, Arbor Day, Lady Bird Johnson, California Polytechnic, Doug Tallamy, the horticulture Keystone expert, and a few others to identify native Northeast, as well as heights, root systems, etc., and ultimately eliminated any non-native or European varieties. So just so you all know what we were trying to do.
Okay.
Pat, excuse me, do you think it would be wise to have that in our ultimate document, however we're going to publish this information, so that people understand?
If it's for the general public, I do. If it's in the subdivision rules, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay,
Well,
the reason I'm asking is because perhaps the general public, not knowing that, might say, oh, I saw this tree over in East Oshkosh and I'd like to have one, and then find out that it's a European or an Asian or whatever species.
Right. Yeah,
Aren't encouraging.
that sounds like a good idea. I'm not sure how we're going to distribute the info to the public.
well, maybe you could clarify, Pat, why two lists? Is it causing, I can see two lists, but I'm just wondering how you guys came up with the idea of two lists.
Well, primarily, there were so many trees to choose from that were natives. I think that was James' hope, that we could create a larger list for the public. I wanted to hopefully keep it simple for the subdivision choices, just
Okay,
as they've been in the past,
Right.
just probably a dozen.
How did you differentiate the difference? In other words, what makes a tree a subdivision tree and not, and I take it the subdivision trees can be on the complete list, but the complete list cannot be on the subdivision trees. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, what distinguishes a subdivision tree then?
So big. we were
Size, okay,
We were trying to honor Shane's list in the beginning. And
Yeah.
then it expanded over time, that there were a lot more. And some of these species, I don't even think a developer could pick up at his local tree supplier. So that's why we tried to keep a simpler list for the subdivision regulations.
okay, and again, just to clarify in my mind, the subdivision list is distinguished by the height. In other words, they don't get as large as the general list, is that basically?
Not really. Most of them we tried to make sure we did native Northeast and Keystone. And then ones that were good, for example, the roots weren't a problem.
Right,
And again, the height, although we weren't really limited in the subdivision, because, all your regulations require all subdivisions to have underground utilities now.
right.
So the height was not restrictive, to us. And again, we tried to work off of Shane's list. We didn't want to not include those items.
All right, okay, yeah. Okay, that's good.
So Pat, the abridged list, the file that was labeled abridged, is that the one you're saying is the subdivision list?
Right,
That's
Tree
right.
list, abridged Bridgewater,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
Yeah, right.
So basically what we're saying is those are recommended for consideration or and for use, basically.
Right. And again, we are not experts, but I'm happy that Ray's nephew approved of the choices.
Yeah, he didn't even comment about the fact there are two lists. He just said, fine list, no comment.
Yeah.
He did comment before about certain trees in terms of roots
Mhm.
as a potential problem, but he seemed to think they were fine lists.
Yep.
So again, so what you're saying, Pat, is that you and James are recommending two lists, one a shorter list for subdivisions and one a general list that people in Bridgewater can use as a potential list for planting trees, right?
Right.
Okay. how, let's go back to the original point then. How are we going to distribute the general list?
I don't know that that's been determined yet. Probably in our education steps and, our handouts that we're going to be doing in the,
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, if we ever can come up with a list of, a pamphlet, that could be on the list. That would be ideal for a pamphlet. Okay, any other comment from people? Shirley?
Right, you bring up a good question in terms of distributing information that may be coming out of this committee and getting to people who are dealing with trees and who would have a decision about planting them and so on. For instance, I think that I'm going to try to recommend something regarding trees that we notify. Here's an example. Somebody wants to have a tree cut down. They called Mr. Lundin. He gives them a price, they agree. He comes in and he cuts down the tree. It's a street tree. He didn't know it, or he didn't have any effect of it. Neither did the homeowner realize that they didn't have the prerogative to cut down a street tree. Neither of them got in touch with a tree warden. So how do we disseminate that kind of information? How do we let people know that, one, they cannot approve the cut down of a street tree? It has to be done through the town tree warden. How can we tell people who are in the business of cutting down trees that there's a certain process that they have to be aware of and go through if they're going to cut down trees, and not just do it at the whim of the homeowner or the landowner or whatever it might be? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Very, very clear. You make an excellent point. I never thought about that before, and that's off the top of my head. I would think that one thing that can be done is put it on the website. It may not be, that the best place, but it should at least go on the website.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, obviously, if we come up with a pamphlet, it'll be on the pamphlet.
There could
And
be a link to the current ordinance that I know is, it's minimal, but there already is one that basically says that you cannot cut down a tree owned by the town, that's in the
Right.
right of way. So it's, it is already in place, even though we want to make all kinds of improvements. Just getting that information out to people, providing that link, having this brochure basically that kind of sets
Yeah,
those
that's
different
good, yeah.
goals. Yeah.
yeah, that's a good point, Nicole. Maybe even the tree warden can disseminate it to all the tree firms in the area. That
Yeah.
I think that's. I don't mean to put things off, but I think that's something we should think about.
I think that's something that's going to come up later on, but what I'm suggesting is that we should keep in mind that we have an education component to this tree committee, and that one of the things that we should be doing is informing people about certain regulations that govern trees.
Yep.
We could do it through the tax bill, perhaps. When the tax bills come out, they come out with a statement or a letter from the
Right.
tree committee that
Yeah.
spells out certain rules and regs that they should be aware of.
You want to send them a tax bill?
It's-
Maybe we should send them a water bill instead.
There you go. It's one of those things that I think is in paper somewhere,
Yeah.
but perhaps less than 50% of the population affected by it, even though it exists.
I wonder if that's an issue now.
Now, I've been noticing that the trees, that there have been tree removing companies around town that have been taking down trees. This is a time of year when they want to do that, or later on when the leaves are off. And I just thought that how many of them know what the rules and regulations for taking down trees in the town of Bridgewater might be?
Well, that's probably I don't know, I hate to use the word simple, but it may be a simple thing to do in terms of just having the town notify all the tree cutting firms within 50 miles of Bridgewater.
But
that-
somebody's got to initiate it.
I know.
because I don't think it's a given that everybody knows it.
Why don't I, when I send Michael a note, include that and just ask him as to how he thinks that should be done. And
And
just,
wouldn't they have to get permission from the tree warden? I mean, we don't
That's
have
a
a
good
permit,
question.
we don't have a permit process like some other towns do in their tree ordinance.
see, I don't, are people actually going to bill for these things? I don't think that's happening. We don't have you know, part of our recommendation is a functioning tree warden, paid. And
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have a paid warden.
when I had a dead tree in front of our house, and I saw it should come down, it's been dead for years and years. I called the zoo. And since I know him, he came over and he walked it off and he said, it's a street tree and we'll take it down. And it took 3 months, but he did. It came down. But I mean, most people don't realize that I mean, where the property line is and where the street, the
Right.
town property and private property is. Let me ask Michael to at least put it out to him and get him. I think, you know, Michael's important to us, and I think it's important that we keep him up to date on what we are not only doing, but, you know, if we have questions, let him help us on that. So he
Yeah.
makes some decisions, you know.
Good.
Okay, is that all
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I have just one other, as you were talking, I was just kind of looking on the town website and Public Works, the Public Works tab. They definitely seem to update. They have like almost like a little newsletter, like a little news flash where they post like when they're doing the hydrant flushing and things. So maybe there's definitely avenues on the town website, maybe to have a little, you know, have a tab for the tree committee and have little news postings like that. Like, did you know you cannot do this? Here's the link
Okay.
to these regulations, you know, and
Okay.
as we get more educational information, maybe we can post it on that page.
Okay, that's good. Shirley?
I think that's important. I'm just thinking back, brand new homeowner buys a house in Bridgewater, moves in. One of the last things on their mind is probably going to be, let's find out what the rules and regs are regarding trees on my property. I think we're going to have to do the outreach and get to them as opposed to expecting that they're going to go searching websites to find out what they can and cannot do. And there are a lot of people who still don't have the access to the information through computer, et cetera. So we have to look for more creative ways of informing people.
They may want to plant a calorie pear.
There you go.
Okay, it sounds like we have an issue to discuss at our next meeting. That is how to disseminate information, not just general information, but rules and regs to the general public. Why don't we look into this and have it put it on the next month's agenda, okay?
Good.
Okay. Okay. Next thing is shade tree ordinance. I did send that to you, did you? Did you not? Did I not?
Yes.
Okay, now Josh has, just to give you a quick background, I know you know it, but this started out with Bill. And this turned into Bill saying it's beyond him, and that we had a meeting with Bill, Josh, Shirley, and Michael, and he simply turned to Josh and said, "Why don't you?"
Right.
And I thought that was whoa. And in talking to Josh later, we found out that he's all excited about doing this. So
Good.
he's into it. And so what he has gotten information from Bill. Bill sent him some of the stuff that he had done. And he's come up with the first 4 sections of a ordinance, which he'd like our input on. And then we're obviously not do the whole thing yet. And I neglected to send this to my nephew. I will send it to him. So we can discuss it next meeting. But any comments on what Josh has put together here? Any general comments?
I thought it looked very promising. I was pleasantly surprised.
I thought it looked good too. And I mean,
Yeah.
but I'm a novice, so I don't know. Nicole, Shirley, any comments?
I don't
think-
believe I have that, Ray. Maybe I missed it.
It came from Josh.
Oh, okay, sorry. I have not reviewed and that yet because I didn't know I had it. Let's see.
I'm always amazed that you people can do two things at the same time. You can stay on this and at the same time go online and figure something out. I usually have my iPad here trying to do that. But
I found it. I found it. He did send it on Friday.
Shirley, what did you look at it, Shirley?
I must admit, I did not look at it.
Okay. The one, he uses Shirley, and maybe you know better than I do, but he says the diameter in definitions, diameter breast height. The diameter of any tree is measured at 4.5 above the existing grade. Is that normal? Do people know that? Is that, Pat, you're saying yes?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then actually you have to take that a step further, right, Nicole? You have to divide it by pi.
Nicole, you're muted.
I didn't hear that. You have to divide it by what?
Pi, 3.14. Once you take the diameter of the circumference of the tree.
What are you doing then, Pat?
Well, you use that to establish whether somebody has to go through a certain process in order to cut a tree, or we would use that as part of the formula if we're going to charge a developer for cutting down trees, based upon the DBH or the
Yeah.
circumference of those trees.
Yeah, that is definitely correct, because everything that Shirley and I have been researching for the mitigation,
Mhm.
all of the examples of mitigation funds for cutting down trees are based on that calculation of DBH. Yeah, diameter at breast height.
You lost me though. I can understand the 4.5 feet. But what are you saying, Pat, about
Yes.
the dividing by what, 3
1, 4.
3.14 in order to determine, I guess, the DBH. They didn't.
Oh,
That's just because if you went out with a little
Diameter.
measure and you can get the circumference, that's just how you do the calculation to figure out the diameter, which is just the straight line across.
Right.
3.14 is what do you call it? That's
That's pi. That's what
pi, yeah, that's
Yeah.
pi. Well, it's 3.14 and 100 million digits out more, but we won't worry about that. Okay, so I see then. Should that be in there? Divided by 3.14? Or no?
They seem to just refer to DBH and assume everybody knows what they're talking about.
Okay. Is that, Nicole, do you think that's what you come across too? Just the 4.5 divided by, well, doesn't say divided by 3.14, but that's good enough, eh?
I think so, because you're telling somebody that they need the diameter, which is a straight line, but you can't stick a tape measure through the trunk of a tree. So, I think there could be a little guidance somewhere to show somebody how to do that, but I've never seen it written in the regulation. And
Okay.
Shirley and I have been looking at a lot of things talking about the DBH. It just seems a very common measurement of trees when mapping and taking an inventory of trees.
Okay. All right, it seems to me that section 2 is pretty well done. It's pretty straightforward. Are there any questions on that, comments? I mean, and the definitions again seem pretty straightforward. I was just wondering what you thought about the responsibilities of the tree warden in section 4.
Just going back to section 2, my only additional comment would be that we may need to add more definitions and or coordinate some of the things Pat's been doing and some of the things Shirley and I have been doing like, for example, if we want to use that word keystone anywhere, we should define it in a tree ordinance. And then, for example, some of what Shirley and I have been working on for like clearing or clear cutting, we may want to have definitions for that. So I think there's just more coordination with the
Okay.
mitigation and the tree list.
Okay.
That either we make sure that we use consistent terminology, whether, you know, we use the terminology that Josh is developing and or he helps us adapt more into it. That's my only comment.
Okay, that makes sense. Pat, Shirley, you agree?
Right.
That sounds good.
How about if you give me some more definitions and I'll forward it to Josh.
Mhm.
If not the exact definition, something you want to find.
Yes.
All right, why don't you send it to me and then I'll pass it on to Josh when he gets back. Okay. Okay, any other comments on this? Oh, the tree warden again, any comments on that?
Do we know if Bill is going to stay with being the tree warden because he keeps talking about retiring?
Well, I've been talking about getting off the planning board for about 5 years. Bill has been talking about that for, I think, longer. I think he is hoping that we will actually have a tree warden at some point, and he could simply slip away. I don't think,
Paid
I don't think we should base anything we recommend on whether Bill stays or not. We should simply say, we need a tree warden, and
We'll-
yeah,
employee, right, because that's the regulation, right?
yeah, Shirley, go ahead.
I think as we continue to press for a bucket truck for the highway department in order for them to do an adequate tree job in town, we will have to continue to press for a salaried tree warden. And I think that that's going to be highly important. Bill is waiting for somebody to take over as tree warden. We're waiting for somebody who has the qualifications and not just interested in trees.
Right.
So it's going to be a sell job to Michael.
Do they need to be a resident? Or
Well-
can they be from out of town? I mean, just like our town manager lives in
I
Falmouth.
think the people that are hired, like whatever, like I don't think Paul lives in town. I think that he doesn't have, somebody on a committee has to be a resident, but not necessarily somebody that's hired on a salary basis that has to be a
Okay.
resident. So
Okay.
I think I don't think that's an issue, Pat.
Oh, good.
I think we're okay on that.
That gives us more latitude.
I know Paul Costa mentioned at one point, I don't know if he's serious or not, that maybe even one of his employees could be a tree warden. And, you know, give him a stipend for being something beyond what he was doing, assuming that he was trained, of course, in other words, paying for being trained and so forth.
Hmm.
I don't know whether we would, if we want a full-fledged tree warden or somebody like that. I mean, my feeling is if we get somebody, even if it's I don't think a tree warden's a full-time job anyway, is it? I mean, even, I don't know,
No,
do
no.
towns share tree wardens? I don't know, you know, that's,
Hmm.
I don't see, you know, a 40-hour work week for a tree warden. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we used to share our building inspector with West Bridgewater, so we could probably do an arrangement like that.
All right, so we're gonna recommend tree warden. Salaried, right?
Mhm.
By the way, since I'm gonna send this to Michael, could we have a vote on that? Could somebody make a formal proposal that we recommend a salary tree warden? And I want to make this official.
I'll move that we recommend to the town manager that he investigate the possibility or that he look into a salaried position for tree warden.
Second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
I
Good, good. All right. So regarding Josh's recommendations for the ordinance. We are saying that we will take this up again in August. That we think that the section 2 looks good. And that we may want to have more definitions. And the tree warden responsibilities are okay. Any problem with them? Shirley?
We have those written down.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you don't have this
Is that in Josh's ordinance?
in Josh's or in section 4?
I have it, but I haven't looked at it.
Okay, I'll just read it quickly. The tree warden shall be an employee of the town. Oh, it says here, huh, we'll have to check that. Appointed by the town manager. The tree warden shall be qualified for the role as defined in Mass General Law, section 41, chapter 41, section 106, and also according to the standards established and published by the Massachusetts Tree Wardens and Forestry Association. 2, the duties and responsibilities of the tree warden shall conform to general laws, section 87, and shall include, but not limited to, the following: A, management of all trees within public rights of way and on town property. Subsection 1, granting or denying it and attaching reasonable conditions to all permits required under this ordinance. And 2, enforcement of this ordinance. And that's it. Says nothing about private property.
Hmm.
Well, I think that's important, an important part of his job.
What would you, how would you put it? Make recommendations regarding private property, or?
Well, I'm not sure if you want to just separate private property. It might come under a section that would be tree removal. And then you would
Right.
suggest that the tree warden has to approve of any trees that are to be removed. And that might be, well, it definitely would be street trees, but it might be, we might have to look at other possibilities where tree removal would come into play.
Right.
Tree too close to a house, for instance, that's dying, might suggest that tree warden should come in and say that tree should come down. I don't know. But there's a lot of information in the different town ordinances regarding tree wardens. Maybe we need to kind of look through that and see what other towns have recommended as requirements for tree warden or the
Right.
jobs of the tree warden.
Yeah, there may, I wonder if there's a building on that. I wonder if there is just an additional item that gives some of the boards and the commissions that are issuing permits would potentially need to defer also, to the tree warden to help review trees that are to be removed, or to, if there are penalties or mitigation funds, they would be, involved in that process in terms of helping to review things like that they've done the diameter breast height calculations correctly, or that they're, confirming that they've tagged the proper species when it's required and things. So I wonder if there is a way that the other boards and commissions, if they report to the town manager, but I don't know if they're somehow also, part of the permitting process,
Well,
basically.
I was thinking about that, Nicole.
Yeah.
Because when the planning board, if there's a development and there are trees there, it's our
Yeah.
responsibility to make that decision. And we don't report to the town manager, by the way.
Okay, yeah.
It's up to each committee. And so the tree warden can advise.
Yes.
That's a good point. Maybe what
So-
we need something whereby if there's a development and the planning board is dealing with the development, the tree warden can advise.
Can advise the planning board, the zoning,
Yeah,
the zoning, the
yeah,
conservation commission.
yeah. Okay,
So that would probably be another comment for Josh to research how other tree wardens I think that's a pretty common thing, that they must get involved in that process.
Yeah, I think the state spells out very clearly the roles and responsibilities of a tree warden. So that certainly would be the first place to go. But then we might want to look to see if there are towns that have dealt with other parts that the state hasn't included.
We may have to discuss this all again when Bill is in attendance.
You took the
agree.
words out of my mouth, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking, it came to up here too. I think, yeah, I think comments are good, but we should, Bill should be in on this, and we should bring this up again at the next meeting,
Mhm.
okay?
Yep,
All right, some of this is gonna go easy now. The tree watering, I think what he had said the last time was that it's all set. The gators are on the trees at the park, and I assume they're working. Pretty hot out there, but okay, number 4 is forestry department bucket truck. Now, if I'm not mistaken, at the last meeting, I thought I was looking at them, we talked about that, and that we were going to recommend all this. It said in the notes, it says that to the town manager. Now, it's my fault, I guess. I did not send the exact recommendation to the town manager until Paul clarified for me what he wanted. And then we had sat down with the town manager, and I thought he and the town manager were going to sort of work this out, what can be done. It hasn't. And I talked to Paul, or I emailed him recently, just before I went on vacation. He said he has talked to Michael bits and pieces, but not in a formal way. So my recommendation right now is that we vote again, and then that we're saying the tree committee recommends the following. Now, what Paul did send me, and I'm going to read this to you. I just got it. That what he would, his recommendation, he is saying a new bucket truck, that a 55-foot bucket truck with a reach of would run approximately $160,000. Forestry department foreman, roughly $80,000 annually. Forestry department laborer, possibly shared with highway, he said, $55,000 annually. An agreement that all forestry departments need safety equipment, repairs, etc., will fall under the highway department in our budget. Updated chainsaws, pole saws, pruners, and initial safety equipment, $5,000. Some small budget line increases to cover the costs of new employee uniforms, training, tools as needed, and police details. I think that's pretty extensive in terms of what he is saying. And if you're willing, I'll just put this into a letter to Michael and start lobbying it going forward. I mean, what do you think?
what's the total? Did he give us a total there?
No, but we're talking roughly just over 200,000.
200?
200, yeah. Talking about, I would say to be safe, 225. Drop in the bucket. No pun intended. No, I mean, this is what he's saying, and I think it should be passed on. That's all. What do you say?
I think we ought to be sure that Paul is on board with whatever it is that we want to send to the town manager.
Well, I did, I did say that this is what he sent me.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Does he know that it was going to the town manager?
yeah, I don't remember my email, but I did ask him, have you discussed any of this with the town manager? And he said bits and pieces.
Hmm.
I thought there was going to be some discussions between the last meeting and this meeting between him and the town manager. We don't even have to mention Paul. I mean, we could just say, this is what the
Mhm.
tree committee recommends, and if you feel if you want, we don't have to put figures in. Whatever you think, we could just simply say, these are the things we think are needed for the town, for tree committee.
I think it would be better if it came from the tree committee than if it came from Paul.
Oh, no question. That's why, yeah,
So
it should not be on his back.
there you go.
I agree, yeah. So I need a motion. I want this a formal vote to recommend what I just read to you, to Michael. It with or without figures in terms of monetary figures. I mean, there are pros and cons to putting figures in. We can say roughly, we think that the cost of this would be
Total.
$175,000. Lowball, I don't know.
Well, it's probably gonna get whittled down, so we should start higher.
Yeah, but my only fear is that it might scare them.
I don't know. I think we ought to go bigger than
All right.
smaller.
Give me a motion. Somebody.
I move that we send to the town manager a list of the things that we want or that we believe are necessary to function as a tree city with a department who is able to take care of the trees. And we expect the price will be somewhere in the range of $225,000.
Okay, but are you recommending also that I list those?
Yes,
Okay, all right. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Nicole, Shirley, tree mitigation. What do we have?
you want
Yes.
to start, Nicole?
Sure, I will start. Yep, so Shirley and I have been working on doing some research and kind of coming up with some recommendations for mitigation funds for cutting down trees as part of development projects. I can share my screen because I'll kind of just share some working files, and then similar to, how we've been sharing other material, we'll be able to share it to the whole committee after today. Oh, nope, I don't have screen sharing ability.
Oh,
Yeah, let me try it.
Yep, you do.
Okay, can you do it now?
Nope, mine says host disabled participant screen sharing, so she didn't make me a co-host.
Deborah, you're not around, right? I have up, it says you are screen sharing. Wait a minute, let's try this again.
You are, yeah, I'm viewing Ray's screen.
Oh,
Okay. Well, I can kind of. Yeah, I don't think unless, all right, how do you make me a host?
let me get my wife, maybe she can do it. I don't know, hang on a second.
Oh, technology. Yeah, Ray's the only host. I think she intended to make me, but I don't think it worked.
Hmm.
Here, when Nicole, can you set it up? We want Nicole's screen share.
Nicole to screen share.
I did hit share.
Okay, you have to go back to participants,
Yeah,
and here's Nicole. And make co-host.
there we go.
You okay?
Let's see, hold on 1 second.
You have to start, who's this here? Is this you or is this somebody else? Sharon?
Yep, I think that worked. Nope,
All
does
right.
everyone see
Okay.
something with 3 blue bars? Yep.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay,
Deborah,
okay.
that's what Deborah tried to do, but I don't think it ended up going through the
Hey.
first time.
Okay,
All right, so just in summary, this is just kind of a summary of like our brainstorming and our working notes. When Shirley and I met, we kind of talked about 3 parts to these mitigation funds, I guess. The first would be collecting mitigation funds for cutting protected trees. This, I think, Pat, we really are talking about wanting to kind of coordinate with these lists that Pat and James are developing, and maybe we obviously need to kind of coordinate our terminology. But this is something very common in other towns that we researched, and we'll show you some examples where basically they develop these significant trees or these protected trees. There's a list of trees that are protected, and then there's basically a dollar value penalty for cutting these trees based on this calculation of their total diameter breast height. And we'll show you an example of that in a minute. So we think that that's very important that we do something like that here in Bridgewater.
can I ask you a quick question while you're going through this?
Yeah,
How do you, who checks to see whether they're protected trees?
We really didn't go into this.
yeah.
I think what we also need to think down the line is we need a tree inventory.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, right now, we know what we understand at this moment is that the tree ordinance is likely going to mostly cover public trees at this point. We've talked about the fact, such as the example of the first amount of mitigation funds that we have in our budget have come from the mitigation that the planning board asked of the Route 18 development. So what we thought our task at hand was to help provide guidance at this point, maybe to the planning board or others, in terms of a calculation or a formula that they could use to consistently request mitigation funds. So we thought there's kind of 3 pieces to that. There's protected trees that are maybe just more standalone, clearing substantial trees or removing substantial trees for development. We talked about a very heavy need for clear cutting, which has been done several times for residential, industrial, and commercial properties that we're aware of throughout the town. So I would kind of categorize what that Route 18 project, they certainly clear cut acres and acres and acres of land to make way for that building. And the planning board, did request mitigation funds, but it sounds like it was just a negotiation. There was no formula. So what we've been working on is to try to help do some research and provide some sort of a formula or some sort of structure for that request.
Just to interject, Nicole, you're right about that. I mean, it was simply an open discussion about
Yeah,
cutting trees. How about giving us some money and we work something out?
Right.
It is in the zoning now. Mitigation, if you look at the zoning, mitigation for cutting trees is in there, but it's not a formula or anything. It's just a general comment.
right.
But at least gives us some
Yep.
backbone now. But doesn't say, but what you're doing here is good because then it clarifies how we define what we're talking
Yes. And we coordinated with the zoning. So we looked at the zoning tables. We looked at what you're allowed we looked at basically how much you're allowed to put on a site in the different zoning uses. We looked at the required open space. So we, then are kind of basing some of these recommendations and these formulas on those, that criteria.
Great.
And then there's one other thing we talked about that kind of happens, that's happened a few times here in the town, is that there's a lot of, areas that are already clear cut, right? They had already been clear cut for agriculture or whatnot. And then a developer purchases those and, does what they need to do. They have open space requirements, but quite frankly, they really don't have to do a thing. to meet that open space requirements, because they're just taking credit for all the spaces that are not buildings and not parking lots and saying that's open space. But we also thought that, you know, they should, you know, as part of their negotiations with the planning board, hopefully create some of those open spaces as having an ecological value, whether it be trees or whether it be a meadow or whether it be some sort of active form of agriculture. And if not, we would suggest that there's also a formula for requesting mitigation funds for those projects. Like they, you know, the project at Kirk Street happened to be, you know, a redevelopment. They didn't have to do any clearing. They didn't even have to really probably remove many or any trees because there was nothing there. But, you know, so that was kind of another piece that we still have dangling that we think is important, but we don't really have a formula for that yet. But I wanted to bring that up to the committee for consideration.
Now, Nicole, under this mitigation category, it talks about protected trees, maple, red oak, dogwood. Now, going back to the Route 18, that was all pine. So they wouldn't have to comply with anything.
Well, they would, because that was clear cutting. And that's why we need that definition of what is clear cutting. It's like, it's fully clearing a tract of trees and shrubs and brush. And you're right, in most cases here in town, it's upland areas that are being clear cut, and they're probably mostly evergreen. But those wouldn't fall under kind of the protected trees, because at that point you're clear cutting. So there's a penalty for that.
And where is that going to be? Some, you know, in our,
Yeah, I
And
was thinking the same thing. Where is this gonna go?
where is the penalty for cutting all those other trees, not protected trees?
Well, that's the clear cutting.
No, I mean, I think what Pat's saying, Nicole, is where are you gonna put this data? Where in the, it seems to me it's gonna go in zoning.
Gonna go where, did you say?
Zoning bylaw,
Yeah, I mean,
or the planning board rules and regs, I don't know.
well, I thought we were trying to help develop that guidance for like a formula for collecting mitigation funds. So we didn't research like the structure of how this gets. At this point, we've researched what other towns do for
Yeah.
penalties for cutting trees or clear cutting trees. Right now, that's what we have done.
No, yeah, that's fine, and I'm just wondering where other towns put this data.
Oh,
That's all. As Pat said, it seems to me that would ideally fall under zoning, but maybe not.
I think it would definitely fall under zoning.
Yeah, I mean, that's ideal, because if it's in zoning, then it's a black and white thing,
Yes.
easy to enforce.
For the planning,
Yes.
right?
But the
Yes.
problem is getting it into zoning. It's a little more of a,
Well, it's already in the zoning table, though. You said that it's already there.
not,
That
not in this, no, it's just one or two lines, Nicole. It's
Yes.
the general thing. This could back up that.
this could back up that.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
thought it would be. This is general, because again, it's that right now, the way they're written, it leaves collecting mitigation funds up to the discretion of the planning board. That's all we have right now, right?
All right, let me ask
So
you a
th-
question then. Where can any of what you just presented, Nicole and Shirley, do you see this, used outside the planning board's purview?
Yes.
Where?
What do you mean, where?
What, in what context would this?
What-
need-
Regulation, what document?
Where would it,
They basically are part of the tree ordinances as well, I think, right, Shirley? Like the Wellesley and the Concord,
Mm-hmm.
they have a tree preservation bylaw. And these calculations that I mentioned that we found that basically have the list of protected species. So this is from Wellesley. So for example, their protected species are, maple, red oak, hawthorn, dogwood. They have a list somewhere. These are what we want to protect. And if you are cutting them down, you have to take an inventory of the ones you're removing, the diameter, breast height, go through all these calculations, and then basically do this calculation of how much mitigation funds you provide to the town for them to put it in their tree. They call it a tree bank in
Right.
Wellesley. We call it our tree fund or whatever. Yeah.
Nicole, I just noticed in your example here, I just looked down at the bottom, it says rules and regulations. That's planning board. That's not.
Okay.
And that's fine, because if we put it in the planning board.
Yeah.
Planning board doesn't have to go to the council to change things. We could do it ourselves.
Okay. That's good.
The zoning is the lengthy process, and you can get a lot of pushback on it. But if
Okay.
you put it into the rules and regs of the planning board, then I'm not saying it's gonna be easy, but it's a lot easier than trying to change zoning.
Yep. And this is the same, this is a sample from Concord. So this is a very common thing. This kind of calculation, based on the diameter, breast height, and establishing these protected trees. So that's where I think this coordination would be between us and Pat, to, figure out which trees we consider significant in this town, and which ones, we would want to prioritize the kind of a collection of mitigation funds for the individual cutting down of those trees. That's kind of the one part. And as I mentioned, the other part is the kind of clear cutting. Like at some point, if you're cutting a half an acre of trees, you're not going to, perhaps you then kick into just penalties for clear cutting. And or if you're clear cutting, different types of connected trees and forests, like upland forests that a lot of times have a lot of evergreens. These are some recommendations where we have seen that basically you establish kind of maximum amounts of clearing you'd want to see on a site, and then begin to establish penalty for clear cutting beyond that threshold. So when we looked at the zoning for industrial areas, and just in general, based on our Bridgewater zoning code, our industrial areas have like a minimum open space requirement. They have kind of an allowable lot coverage. That's not necessarily the building cover, that's like the lot coverage. So we, obviously there's some portion of this site to build what this landowner is entitled to build. They likely need to clear something for their building, but I think that these would, sort of incentivize them to minimize it and to not exceed certain thresholds. And we're just throwing these out there for now, but assuming that, you would begin considering penalties for clear cutting more than 60% of the site. And then as you clear cut more and more and more, the dollar value per acre becomes greater and greater and greater. And we,
What about, I'm a little confused now. What about, let's say a developer comes in and they want to cut down 10 acres of trees.
Yep.
Are you saying that the penalties would be imposed then, or are the penalties for cutting without permission? You know what I'm saying? How do you define penalties?
sorry, I don't know, I shouldn't call it penalties. I think we were talking about it as mitigation funds.
Okay.
So there would be a certain, it would be dependent on your lot. If you have only 12 acres, if your lot is 12 acres and you want to clear cut 10 acres, the mitigation funds set in after you hit some threshold, right? There's some allowable amount, but once you start clearing more than 50% of your lot or more than 70% of your lot, you begin to collect mitigation funds. I mean, we could do the whole thing, but I worry you're going to have some pushback because of course if you're meeting zoning, you might need to clear something to build your building or build your house or build your houses.
Yeah,
You know, that's where we were starting. That's where we found some recommendations like from the Cape Cod Commission that basically said, you know, there's an allowable clearing in industrial lands, commercial lands, and residential lands. And it might be 60% in industrial and commercial, and it might be 50% in residential. So you'd kick in the mitigation penalties, I guess, after you start clearing beyond those, that first 50% or that first 60%. And we're just, this is just a preliminary crack based on that Cape Cod Commission and based on the general lot coverage and open space requirements in our zoning. We also, just to complicate things even more, we also are really concerned about clear cutting within the wetland buffers. And also, you know, there's definitely places where you're kind of not allowed to clear anyway, your rear side setbacks, you can't build anything anyway.
Right.
So we were thinking that there's, to basically help to disincentivize that practice, that there's, you know, additional mitigation that could be collected above and beyond those other mitigation funds when you do these things on the naughty list. Again, this is, we're working this out. This is really, we're doing a lot of research and we're trying to put things out there that we think makes sense for the town. So we're not, this still needs work, but you know, this is where we're at that we think could work for
No,
us.
this is good. This
Yeah.
is good. It's just, I'm just, I'm not, I guess what I'm not looking so much to the details. I'm looking at how it's going to be implemented. More-
Yeah.
That seems to be more the issue than the fact that we have mitigation in the zoning is a big thing. This could back it up, obviously.
Yep.
Question
Yeah.
is, I'm looking at the figures here, and if you're talking like, for instance, the building that went up on 18, they gave us $20,000. If they cut, if it's commercial, what was the commercial? I think they would have been closer
It
to,
would've-
it would have been $300,000. Or industrial, I guess would fall into commercial. It would be roughly close to $300,000 they would have had to pay us for that. They would have,
Well, I don't think so, because the first 60% they cleared, they would not have a penalty for.
oh, I see. I'm sorry. Okay.
So it's really just, you know, they're entitled to clear a certain amount because they can build a building that is X big on this lot. They already have a requirement for open space. You know, they're allowed a little bit of a provision for providing the access and the, you know, what they need to do to support the building. But in many
Okay.
cases, they're, you know, sprawling as much as they can. They're taking shortcuts by clear cutting so that they can just do a major regrading and not really have to take care and kind of planning. So it's sort of like, you know, it's basically all of the extra that they clear cut, you know, kind of above and beyond some threshold. So I'm thinking their penalty would have been maybe a little more than 20,000, but maybe not a ton more. And I'd love to
Well-
run that. I'd love to use that to calibrate these numbers.
Hey, let me just, again, let me clarify my mind. Look at the commercial, the 65 to 75% means they can cut that without a penalty, right?
Up to 65% of the lot, they could have cut without penalty.
Okay, and the next line, 70 to 80% refers to what?
So then the next, if they go beyond that 65%,
Yeah,
and they went anywhere between 65 and 75%, that portion of their acreage that they cleared they would have penalty.
right. So I guess what I'm saying here, I'm thinking to myself that they're getting a free ride for quite a bit of cutting, aren't they?
Yeah, I'd love to push that down. They are allowed, though, they are allowed to build a building. I'm fine with being as strict as possible, but I just figured if I were a lawyer, which I'm not, I would say I am zoned industrial and I'm allowed to build a structure that is 30% of this lot or whatever. And so therefore I, you know, shouldn't be penalized for clearing what I'm allowed to build. I don't know. I don't know how we do that.
Well, I would definitely change the word penalty. I would use the word mitigation.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
penalty sounds like doing something wrong.
Yep.
Mhm.
When the solar farm first came in, where the commercial building is in 19, there was no mitigation. I started out by saying, how about giving us $200,000? And they
Yeah.
balked at that. And then after a couple more meetings, they came back and said, we'll give you something. And I said, okay, how about 76,000? And he said, okay, just like that. Didn't bat an eye. And, solar farms are profitable. Maybe it should have gone with 100,000. I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
low here, that's all, for a certain.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, if for instance, they had 75%, if they cut 80%, I don't know, yeah. This is good, though. I mean, I think we just have to work out some details here, that's all.
Mhm.
Yeah, we almost need to maybe figure out what the, like in between here, because the allowable lot coverage just, that accompanies everything, not only the building or the structure, but also the parking lot and everything else if it's a building. But you're right, it kind of leaves out something like solar. So, maybe the discretion of the planning board is that you could, collect mitigation funds for any percent, but maybe we really highlight where you've gone way above and beyond, like where you really don't need to be clear cutting to meet, to basically build what you need to build.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Right now, for years, the planning board has, if you want to, what do we call it now? We haven't done it in such a long time. Cluster development,
yeah,
where we give people, the developer, the right to decrease the size of the lots if they leave 10-20% treed. In other words,
Yep.
open space. And that's worked when it's come before us.
Mhm.
How would that fit in, though? The developer then says, well, we're doing a cluster development, so this doesn't fit in at all, then, that they could say. I don't know. Anyway,
well, I think the mitigation funds are at the discretion, so if the developer is working with the planning board and, mitigating on site, but in ways that are acceptable, doesn't that, maybe you wouldn't need to collect mitigation funds if they're doing everything in a very, sustainable way. I don't know.
all right. How do you want to proceed on this? What do you want to do?
Can we distribute, I'll make this correction and distribute it to the committees for everyone to review and give us some more feedback on.
Okay. Okay, and put it on the next meeting?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Maybe it would also be a good idea if we could to contact the chairman of the planning board, let him look at it, see what his feedback might be. Do you think that would help?
Later, not yet.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, not yet.
all right.
Yeah, later, Shirley. I don't think it's too early.
yeah, I think for now, it's maybe more the structure of if everybody agrees that, that we need, guidance based on, kind of individual tree removal, because sometimes that is pertinent to a project, and mitigation formula for clear cutting, which is also sometimes, and maybe there could be both in certain instances, but we think that they're both important in Bridgewater.
Okay. Good. So we'll put this on the next meeting agenda, and you two will revise this. Possibly you're changing the word penalty to mitigation.
Yep.
Okay, and
We'll distribute to the committee, and
Yeah.
then maybe in the meantime, I will, I'd like to just maybe take that project that we can use an example on Route 18 and just see kind of help calibrate these formulas to, or just at least figure out how much they cut beyond certain thresholds, or how much they, cut beyond their building coverage.
Something just came to mind, which I should have mentioned earlier. When we first asked for mitigation, Nicole, I specifically said, you're cutting down 10 acres of trees.
Mhm.
Give us money to plant more trees around town. That was specific for tree planting and care of trees. That was specific in the decision of the planning board.
Mhm.
This is in general. Where's the money going to go here?
I think the same thing, Ray. It'll go into a fund, and the fund will be used for planting new trees and maintaining them. It may
Okay.
also be used for educating the public about the types of trees and where they should be, and so anything that the tree committee is responsible to do that costs money, will come out of that, except for a bucket truck, for instance. I don't think that that's going to pay for equipment necessarily, or salaries. I think it's going to pay to maintain trees, to plant new trees, to educate people about trees.
Okay, all I'm saying is that has to be specified. If not, that's going to go into the general budget, and it's.
Oh,
going-
I see. Okay,
That's
yeah,
all.
I agree. It shouldn't go back
Yeah.
into the general budget.
It
We
should-
thought, this is exactly that. This is trying to put formulas around those mitigation funds so that you can be consistent or have consistent guidance
Yep.
every time, every project that requires mitigation.
And Shirley, I would disagree slightly. I would say a bucket truck fits the maintenance of trees. It may
Yeah,
be-
I swallowed that. I agree with you on that.
Because I've already told Michael, I said, we have $27,000 that could go towards something like a bucket truck.
Mm.
So,
I'm just not sure that we want to make the mitigation fund become a vehicle to collect money that should normally be coming out of the town budget.
agreed. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just think about that. We can talk about that next meeting also, okay?
Hmm.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay, next thing, pamphlets on trees for the public. I haven't done anything. I couldn't find, I don't know how to approach this. I think it's important that we do something. I mean, especially if, the fall's coming, it's planting season in the fall. How do you want, anybody have any ideas on this? I'm not sure what to do.
Well, there's certainly some information that we could copy from other sources that would help, that we could put together into a pamphlet and pass out to people that would help understand how they should do it correctly versus what grandpa used to do 50 years ago.
What sources are you talking about?
Well, the National Grid, I believe, has some stuff on trees and how to plant and where to plant and things of that sort, the distance between. There are other sources of that sort that we've come across in our research that would help to put together an educational pamphlet for people who are interested in how to select a tree, what tree is appropriate for what site, how close or how far apart should they be, and things of that sort.
In your book here, do any towns have anything like this? Has anybody seen anything?
I believe I've seen some things like that. In fact, I've even seen diagrams of trees showing the level that they should be planted at and things of that sort. So yeah, there is information out there, yes.
It seems to me that this is an important project. At the same time, it's going to take a lot of work to get it done right.
Well, and that's why I'm not thinking that we should rush at this.
Okay,
This might be something that we can put it on the back burner after we get some other aspects of our tree committee working.
all right. Then why don't we each individual look and see if we can find anything? We'll put it back on the agenda again in August. and
Find
see-
some more resources, right?
Okay,
Good.
all right. Now the garden club. Nancy.
Hi there.
Hi. Nancy,
I-
no?
Am I
Oh,
on? I
You're
unmuted,
on.
right?
You're on. No, you're on. Go ahead.
And I'm very interested in all your tree discussions, actually very interested. However, some time ago, it became apparent to the garden club that we hadn't planted any trees as of late. Actually, I think the last time we planted trees was at the playground. And a few people have noticed that we've not planted trees. So the subject had come up at board meeting more than once. Donna Kelly, who's on the BIA, mentioned that there seemed to be a committee coming out of BIA that would involve trees. And so we kind of waited around until you got organized. And we wanted to approach you with this joint adventure because we haven't planted any trees lately, and because most of us are getting older, we were going to approach you for a suggestion for a location, approach you for a species, and perhaps put a project together where we could plant a couple of trees. We could show up and hold a shovel in our hands. We could get somebody to take our picture. It would be a joint corporation between a town committee and the garden club. We are willing to put forth some money for a couple of trees. We thought we would do a little publicity on it. We use Facebook a lot. And I wanted to tell you that if you wanted to just publicize the fact that you have some new guidelines for trees, you might throw something on Bridgewater residents. They have 25,000 people on their website, and Bridgewater 02324 has 10,000 people on their site. We use them a lot, and Buzz Around, we use them a lot to promote our things. But we didn't know how far along you were, how far along your organization has come. And I'm here to see if you would even consider something like that in the future. For Arbor Day last year, we were at the polls, which I was going to suggest to you that there's another place that you can hand out your pamphlets. And we handed out in 2 hours, like 100 Fraser fir seedlings. And I think we'll do something like that again next year. And it seemed to be well received. They were this big, but it was our Arbor Day project. And as I said, but we're really looking to your committee for guidance and in the selection of a species as well as a site. So I just wanted to throw, it's nothing that has to happen right away. I have to go back and explain what the tree committee is doing. I was going to ask you, where is your funding? Is your funding from the mitigation money?
There is no
Is
funding.
town funding you?
No funding.
Or it's, let's put it this way, we have roughly $27,000 in mitigation money.
Yeah.
Which we can use. But we do not have a budget. So
Okay.
all the money that we spend, which we intend to spend, we will spend, has to come through the town manager's office and approval by the town council, I guess. I mean, that's still it's still not clarified. But what happened was when we planted the 2 trees at the park, we needed to put gators to water the tree. And in the end, what town manager said, let Paul Costa simply just write checks on it. I mean, let him spend it, which we did.
Yeah.
So that is an issue going forward for the tree committee. I mean, we want to try to simplify the process, but and it may not be that easy, but at some point, we're going to ask for money from that 27,000. It is set up for trees.
Okay,
Mitigation money that was specified by the planning board, $27,500.
oh, okay.
That is.
We
for trees.
we were willing to pay for the trees that we
Right, you mentioned the
are part of the
$300.
planting.
Yeah, you
But
mentioned.
we just wanted to throw that out to you and give it consideration.
Okay, just to update the committee, I did tell them that you were offered to spend $300, but that has to be a vote. You have to take that vote in the fall, you said, right?
Right, and they're not gonna vote, yes, in the fall, later
Okay.
on.
That's fine.
Um,
And-
we
and
thought
just
that
to
might
put-
cover the cost of a tree or so. And someone told me that the highway department helps you plant. How did you
Yep.
plant? Oh, okay,
Yep. yep,
because-
They will plant, yep.
okay,
Just to clarify to the board, committee, excuse me, I did contact Michael about accepting gifts like from. the
yes,
club.
yes,
And he responded by saying that until he tries to get the town council to change its process, it's a convoluted process in that we have to go through him, it goes to the council, they have to have the normal 2 readings to accept money. He's trying to get them to allow below a certain amount not to go through that process, simply.
oh, right,
accept the money.
Yeah.
So in any case, any money will be accepted by the tree committee.
okay. Well, they don't want it as they don't want to consider it a donation to you. They want to consider it a joint partnership,
That's okay.
although we would be the money source.
Okay, so what you're saying is what you like, you want a project to be proposed and that.
With you
would fund
guys,
it- We
yeah.
would fund it together. That's
Yeah.
good, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, yeah. And that's something to think about, members, that.
Right,
Yeah, and that's the last thing on the agenda that I have, that what we have money in the budget. Do we want to plant in the fall or not? I know we didn't want to do it in the summer, but do we want to plant anything in the fall? Shirley?
Well, I hesitate to just do a carte blanche yes, without having a scheme of some sort, like what are we planting and where are we planting it? And who's going to do the planting and who's going to do the maintenance and things of that sort. I think we should think it out a little bit before we decide to go ahead and buy trees and then say, okay, now what?
Okay, then how would you recommend we start the process? Do we have to identify spots?
I think we should, don't you? How
Yeah.
else are we going to, how else are we going to do with it or deal with it?
How does the BIA determine?
BIA had a committee that would propose where they wanted the trees to plant and what kinds of trees, and then the overall BIA voted on it and approved it or didn't. So I think a committee is probably an appropriate way to go about it now.
Okay, then committee being made up of whom? Subcommittee of this committee or just other people too? BIA? Public?
I would think it would be this committee. If we include other committees, let's say the Garden Club, the BIA, the Conservation Committee, whatever, we're going to end up with a hodgepodge. And we might not all agree that that's where we should be spending our time or money or energy.
Could simplify the process by just, we do it ourselves. I'm just joking.
I hear you. I hear you. Not a bad idea.
I guess, are there obvious spots we need trees? Or no? What about all those trees that are along Main Street? That probably need to be replaced. It's probably a tough area to plant trees, but I think the BIA planted those, didn't they, or was it?
That's right. The BIA planted those trees. The town department, the highway department did the actual planting, but the BIA selected the trees and paid for them.
They're not in good shape.
Not all of them. Some of them are better than others,
Yeah.
right?
How about replacing some of them?
I don't have a problem with that. We know a lot more about trees now than we did when those trees first went in. So perhaps we could select more appropriately now.
Would have to be the same species, wouldn't it, to match what we have?
It depends on where they are that we're replacing them.
We also talked about, in the past, we've also talked about kind of the missing teeth, right, where trees have been lost, and coordinating with Public Works, and when they're doing a street or sidewalk repair, that's the best time to do it, because they can actually try to get even, get the proper amount of soil around the tree roots that are under the sidewalk. And, so coordinating it maybe with streets that are on DPW's work order list for, fairly major improvements, especially sidewalk work, we could identify missing trees that have gone down in past storms and so on and help replace those. That's kind of like low hanging fruit. That was another idea that I think I did bring up in the past, trying to
Mhm.
piggyback on.
Yeah.
At least then at least then our committee could be, rather than just looking at the whole entire town and trying to think about places, we could maybe prioritize where work is already happening.
Mhm. There is that tree that was on Bedford's, Broad Street.
Yep.
That went down and was taken down and never replaced per se. Bedford's Broad Street rather seems to have a greater need right now, in my opinion, than the Main Street does in terms of trees.
Okay. What would you recommend, Shirley? How would we do this?
I would think that maybe a couple of people could put their heads together, walk around or drive around town and see where and decide how many we're going to try to plant. I'm assuming that that'll come out of our mitigation money. Is that a good assumption?
Well, I think it's definitely worth a shot because we have to get some process in place to spend that money. Right now, we haven't spent it. And I'm not sure how Michael wants it done, but I'm going from the proposition. My feeling is to tell him that money is tree money and that our recommendation should be abided by and let him get the money spent. Yeah.
So if we were to go to the town manager and say, we want to plant 6 trees, and this is the location we want them, and this is the type of tree we want, and this is the cost of the tree, and then we wait until they approve it. Is that the idea?
You're right.
Okay,
Right. And
And
to me,
could we-
I don't see why that it shouldn't work.
Could we send our suggestions of locations to you, Ray? I mean, all of us?
I'm not good at keeping records of things. I'm not
Okay,
even sure. I've been jotting down things to do, and I'm not sure I got the right things jotted down.
well, maybe just all of us could have suggestions, but with one
No, we do.
person.
You're right, Pat. We need to compile it. You're right. First of all, we need a vote. We need a vote. What do you want to do in the fall? Shirley, you want to plant 6 trees? Do you want to just do certain needed trees on Broad Street or what? What do you want to do?
I would like to have a little flexibility there and say, we would consider up to 6 trees. That we should look at the more populated areas of the town, such as Main Street, Broad Street, things of that sort, as a first choice. And then come in with a proposal of what we want to do and where we want to do it. And let the committee decide if that's agreeable to everybody, and then go through the process with Mr. Dutton and carry on from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, why don't we do this then? Why don't you give me the recommendations? Maybe Shirley, you can talk to Marilee, maybe she has some ideas too about what to do. And then feed me the information and I'll try to compile it and we can make a decision at the next meeting.
Okay,
Is that okay?
all right with me. And if anybody on the committee here has any ideas of where these trees might go within the parameters of the main populated area of town, please let me know and we'll take it from there. How's that? Is that
Okay.
all right?
Okay.
Okay. One other item. Are we finished with the agenda?
Yeah, we finished.
Okay.
Go ahead, Shirley.
There was a letter that went out, I think it came from Marilee, regarding the emerald ash borer. The ash tree is subject to a particular type of borer that kills it very quickly, and it's beginning to spread all over New England. And apparently there are some cited in Massachusetts. So one of the thoughts might be that we notify landscapers that work here in the town of Bridgewater and maybe give them a sheet of paper that would show a picture of what the ash borer looks like. Let them know what an ash tree looks like. Ask them if they would therefore look on their landscaping route at and for any of these bugs that are floating around and report back to us so that we can go up through a process of trying to eliminate them. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I don't, it's just, to me, it's beyond their ability right now to do something.
Okay.
like that. I just, I mean, I mean, what you do, when you said that, I thought to myself, you know, this tree committee has, it's that what we can do is so wide. I mean, it's so expansive that
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. We should be set up to do something like that, sure.
Well, and this is what I think that we should look forward to in the future.
Yeah,
And contact with landscapers, contact with tree removal companies,
yeah,
things of this sort, I think are part of something that we should wrap into the tree committee.
well,
So,
that in itself is a good point. Maybe we should, at some point, just start, let landscapers know we're around and that we're going to be talking to them, just introduce ourselves as the landscapers, yeah,
yeah, I agree.
good
And
point.
and it's not only the emerald ash borer that's a problem, obviously, there are a couple of other major problems that we should be looking for and asking homeowners to look for them as well as landscapers. I mean, it's the homeowner that benefits from the tree if it's in their yard. I would think they would be concerned.
I know the Friends of the Blue Hills, they, in fact, this Saturday, I think it's this Saturday, every so often they ask for volunteers to come in and pull invasive species out
Yeah.
of Blue Hills. They
Yeah.
just, it's an issue,
Yeah, it is, without a doubt.
yeah.
And I think that's the direction we ought to go when we look at the educational component of our committee.
Mhm.
This is part of what would be included in that, I would think.
Okay. What's our to-do list? Let's see, let's just get this straight. I'm going to email Michael on the tree board, the forestry department stuff that Paul wants.
Mhm.
And we're going to revise the tree ordinance,
Add to the definitions, you mean?
definitions, yeah, definitions. And also the responsibilities of the tree warden.
Mhm.
We're going to talk more about mitigation at next meeting. Okay, I wrote down tree planting in the fall to Michael. So what do you want me to tell him that we intend in the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to recommend that trees be planted and that we're going to use the mitigation money?
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
And are we bound to buy from, do we have to put this out to bid? If we were to buy 6 trees, do we have to put out to bid to the various people that sell trees and get the cheapest price, or do we just go to the nearest?
Nursery.
I don't know.
nursery?
I don't know. Sometimes it's not good to ask questions, Shirley.
Uh-huh.
Just do it.
Well, it isn't as, as our forestry division is technically our public works department, aren't they going to be, wouldn't they be installing the trees?
Right, BIA gets the trees, then the forestry department, then the highway takes care of them.
Yeah,
I would hope so. I don't think we're gonna go out there with our shovels and plant them ourselves.
right. So I think that they, oh, I see what you mean. They'd have to figure out where they're gonna purchase them from a local supplier.
Yeah, the last ones were from National Grid, right?
Right,
So,
they gave. it
Yeah,
to
I
us.
see.
That wasn't
Yep.
an issue, yeah.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I don't know. We're setting the precedent right now on certain things. If we, if we go out and buy some trees, nobody says anything, then we'll just keep going out and buying trees. But
Okay,
I'm just saying that, we just, this committee really started functioning in the beginning of the year. We come a long ways, but to me, it also looks like there's a lot more we need to do, just.
we're just,
no,
We're
I
just,
agree.
once we get something done, we say, oh my God, there's more to do, that.
yeah, right.
All right, anybody else? Okay,
I'll
thank
be
you very
happy
much.
to have any suggestions of places where you'd like to see a replacement tree or a new tree or whatever.
Shirley, but you're recommending that Broad Street be the main place right now.
I'm recommending Broad and also Main Street.
Right, and send
Yeah.
Shirley suggestions.
Okay.
I have no problem with Central Square also. I mean, that's a busy part of our town. So Central Square, Broad Street and Main Street. If you see any trees that you think should be replaced there, by all means, let me know.
Okay,
All right,
all right, good. All right, thank you very much, everybody. We need a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Motion made to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.